Good afternoon, everyone. This week marks the 100th day of the 114th Congress controlled by the Republicans. This week, we also observed Equal Pay Day. This week, the Republicans rejected our attempts to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act. Equal Pay Day, for those of you who weren't at our Equal Pay Day press conference, is the day by which women have finally started earning for this year, unless they would have equal pay for equal work. Over 70%, so it's 78%, 78 cents on the dollar. You work until the middle of April for free as a donation to your employer at the expense of your children, your retirement, your ability to reach your fulfillment. So I think this is one of the strongest manifestations of the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans in terms of middle-class economics versus trickle-down economics. In this same week, as they are rejecting putting more money in the pockets of women, largely in the middle class, they're rejecting an opportunity for us to turn our economy around. The middle class are the job creators in America. When the middle class succeeds, America succeeds. When women succeed, America succeeds. And there's a reason for that. Because while you may see all these indicators talking about how great our economy is doing, and that is good, they are good. And I'll go into some of them in a moment. We're not going to have the full recovery that we need to have until we have stronger paychecks for America's middle class, because the middle class will then use that money, inject demand into the economy, create jobs, turn around the economy. The consumer confidence that we need is directly connected to strengthening the paychecks of America's workers. Middle-class economics. The president talked about it in the State of the Union address. On the other hand, you have trickle-down economics. The same trickle-down economics that took us to the brink of a depression in 2008 before President Obama took office. And they want to take us right back there again. In this short period of time, the first 100 days, they've already passed or marked up tax bills that will give tax breaks to the super wealthy and special interest up to about $600 billion and more to come. This isn't job creating, it is deficit increasing. This is the same trickle-down economics that has never worked, that they have proposed Republican president after Republican president, and now congressional Republicans. Again, took us to the brink. They want to return us to that place. And it's a fight we must make for America, and hopefully it can be nonpartisan. Because the fact is, it takes a while for Americans it is taking a while for Americans to recover from the scars they received in 2008, where their homes, their pensions, their paychecks, and their children's education were threatened by what happened in 2008. And while other indicators show the economy on the rebound, we won't have that full rebound until we put bigger paychecks in the pockets of the middle class. And so that's what you see this week. It's an amazing thing. They just had a bill on the floor to eliminate the estate tax. It will cost over $250 billion to do that, $269 billion. And it affects the top 5,400 estates in the country. 5,400 families are subsidized by taking $269 billion out of our pool of resources. It increases the deficit, reduces our opportunity to invest in our future, which is job creating. It is at the same time they are, and this is the 101st day. That's how they're starting the second 100 days. So they voted to give millionaires a $200,000 tax break if you make $1 million a year. Not if you're a millionaire and your net worth. If you make over $1 million a year, you will get a $200 million tax break. And at the same time, it has to raise taxes on the middle class if you're going to have any balance in how we go forward. So it increases the deficit, undermines our ability to invest in the future. I've said this to you before. I'll say it again. Nothing brings more money to the economy, to the Treasury, than investing in education. So because of what they're doing on these tax breaks and all the rest, they'll then say, well, we got to give $38 billion in tax incentives to big oil to drill, the 5 biggest oil companies, who will make $1 trillion over the life of that subsidy. They don't need any incentive to drill. They have $1 trillion incentive to drill. When I say make, I mean profit, not revenue, profit. But we can reduce Pell Grants by $38 billion to cover that. Nothing brings more money. Early childhood, K through 12, higher ed, post-grad, lifetime learning. Nothing brings more money to the Treasury, in addition to helping people reach their aspirations, in addition to keeping America #1, because innovation begins in the classroom. At the same time, in this first 100 days, they voted to deport dreamers striving for a future in the only home they've ever known, America, voted to strip health coverage from millions of Americans' families again and again, voted advance an unprecedented assault on women's health, dragged the Department of Homeland Security to the brink of a shutdown, and thank heavens we got out of that. So again, we need bigger paychecks and better infrastructure. Let's invest in the middle class, which will bring more revenue to the Treasury, enabling us to support the infrastructure that we need. Better infrastructure, bigger paychecks. On another note, I'm very proud of my House members. In the days following the introduction of the Corker legislation, my members rallied to the president and said, we will support a veto. We will sustain a veto of that damaging bill that would be harmful to negotiations to go forward. I believe that it had an influence on the Senate because they knew they were wasting their time. This bill was going nowhere. But I also think public opinion weighed in on them. And thank goodness the Cardin compromise of Corker is something that is like a non-event. And so people will vote for it, but it won't have, I don't think we need any legislation, but as innocuous as it is, no problem going forward with that. But we are very proud of what the president has done. The diplomatic effort to organize the P5+1 in these negotiations, China, Russia, +1 is Germany, China, Russia, U.S., France. It is very, very exciting. And it can't be squandered because of somebody's view of their role in the world when we have to weigh the equity of what is the best thing we can do to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Let us give diplomacy a chance. Diplomacy that is P5+1, very significant, very significant. I was very proud of the briefings that we received from the administration on it. But as I say, our members were already at a very good place to support the president, reassured by those briefings, increasing our numbers in that regard. You probably want to know about the Gyrocopter. So it's stunning. Well, we were having a meeting yet again, another meeting yesterday with the administration, or in the morning we had the administration at 1:30. We were having the environmental groups to speak about the TPP and its impact on the environment. And so I was going to the meeting. They said everything shut down because a helicopter, or I don't know, Gyrocopter, a small helicopter had landed out front. It didn't take too long to open up again, so our meeting was a success, in case you're wondering. The guests were there and the members could come. But it is my understanding that the Capitol Police are now conducting an investigation working with the Secret Service, the Park Police, the Department of Defense, the FAA, and the D.C. Police. And when we see that, we'll be working, as you know, in a nonpartisan way. The Speaker and I have always valued understood our responsibility to protecting the Capitol for the members of Congress, for the press who cover us, for the families who visit, for everyone who comes here. But it's a stunning thing to think of that we have that visibility, and we're very interested in getting the answers to that. But my understanding is that I don't know how long that investigation will take, but we certainly need answers to it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little more about why you would call the Corker bill as modified innocuous? It still sort of leaves in place 30 to 52 days in which Congress has time to review the deal can't be implemented, and in the worst case scenario, in some scenario, could lead to a resolution of disapproval, which would prevent the waiver of.
It doesn't require that. It doesn't require that. In any event, it's much different from the original Corker bill, which had certain requirements. Congress can always act upon anything it feels like, obviously. But the Corker bill, in the form that it was harmful. I don't think it's as harmful now. Yes, sir.
So you said that this incident yesterday was stunning. Over the last weekend, there was a man that took his life out there on the west front, in the height of the cherry blossom festivities. And then this happened in the middle of the day. Are you confident or at all concerned? Are you confident with the policies that are currently in place to keep the campus safe? Or do you think that there needs to be a complete, review of everything to determine whether, the tourists that do come and visit are going to be safe out there in the West Front?
The first incident was horrible. It happened outside the Capitol. When I first heard of it, it was Saturday. I was in California. It was they got into the Capitol, okay, got into the Capitol, but no, it wasn't in the Capitol. And fortunately, it was on a Saturday. That doesn't mean there weren't lots of tourists around, but that's what these investigations will have to test, because how much security can you have to still have a free flow of people coming into the Capitol to see the Capitol? So it's the constant balance of security and freedom that is something that we make a judgment in everything that we do. Nonetheless, it is essential that we have the investigation to see how people have gotten that far, whether it's self-immolation or however he did that, or the Gyrocopter. That exposure is that's why I use the word stunning. What safeguards can we use? And we don't want to be a place where we're saying this is an ironclad Capitol and have such restriction as to people having access to it. Nonetheless, we have to ensure the safety of those people. And I think this investigation, we can surmise, we can guess, but we really want to know what the facts are.
But after 9/11, there was a different mindset
Yes.
on the airspace around here. And then still a vulnerability like this is exposed yesterday. Does that at all give you any...
Well, remember, we lost 2 of our Capitol Police a number of years ago, and that really hit home in a very sad way. So security changed a bit after that, and then, of course, 9/11 changed everything. So, again, we have to subject what we do to the harshest scrutiny as to how does this enable people to enjoy, find employment, legislate in the Capitol, but nonetheless ensure their safety. So again, I don't have anything more to tell you until we hear what the investigation will yield, and we'll go from there, and I'm sure we'll be doing it in the most nonpartisan way of all. Yes, sir.
You're finishing up.
Oh, I thought it was you. I thought he was a ventriloquist. I heard a voice, but I didn't see a mouth movement. Then you'll be next, and then you can speak for him. Okay.
You mentioned the deficit increasing effects of the tax bills today.
Yes.
and you're critical of those, and yet your Democrats, almost to a man or woman, supported the SGR, the 10-year SGR fix, which itself adds $140 billion, and critics of it say it adds $500 billion over 20 years. What's the difference between those two, and is that hypocrisy?
No, it's completely different. The SGR is an expense that we have. That's an expense that we have. It's not going to go away. And the longer we prolong it, the more expensive it is. And it is, again, an investment in people. In that bill, we not only have you call it the doc fix, I call it a remedy for our seniors. We all invest in the health of our children, and that was, as I mentioned earlier today, one of the first bills we sent to President Obama's desk. We had been passing it, but we couldn't get it signed until we had a Democratic president, and President Obama signed it. And in this legislation, we extend that. And investing in the health of our children is a very positive investment. Some of it is paid for. For example, we have an initiative to help poor seniors, very low income, poor seniors. And that is paid for by increasing costs to the very top, well-to-do seniors. And so that some of it is paid for, some of it is not. All of it is an investment. And I make a distinction between investments and tax expenditures. The tax expenditure is an expense with no value. I mean, unless, in other words, subjected to scrutiny. What is its value? The ones they're passing now have no value in terms of job creation, growing our economy, except to grow our deficit. Yes, sir.
Looking ahead, do you see any issues in which the example of the SGR episode may be replicated? I'm talking about, you had a seat at the table, your top legislators were all invested, we're all working cooperatively with Republicans, and you managed to get a big vote, in which you had your liberals along with Tea Party Republicans all voting for the same thing. Do you see another issue over the next 18 months in which you might be able to replicate that sort of cooperation?
I would just remind you, I appreciate what you said about the SGR, but except for the Homeland Security piece of the appropriations bill, our members had worked together on the now I'm an appropriator, so I always go to that place. Our appropriators had worked in a bipartisan way to bring 12 bills forward. It was only on the 12th bill, the Homeland Security bill, that they decided to put riders which would eliminate repeal the president's executive actions on immigration. That doesn't belong on an appropriation bill. You want to bring it up on the floor, have a debate, see what you can do, but it doesn't belong on an appropriations bill. So it just reminds you that there is a record of working together as appropriators, and that will continue. So that's one area of agreement. It doesn't get as much visibility, but that's one area of agreement. And we would hope that we could pass these bills individually rather than having them in a crom-om or whatever you want to call a bill that is a full package together. I think transportation offers an opportunity for us to work together. It certainly is urgent for us to do. The trust fund will run out. The administration has an interest in a proposal. I understand there was an introduction of a bipartisan bill today to index the gas tax and has other considerations. I haven't read it fully, but that being the revenue piece of it. But I look forward to examining it. And I believe that the Committee of Infrastructure, Transportation and Infrastructure is a committee that is, its tradition has been to act in a bipartisan way. So that's a very big deal. I would hope that before too long, and that's why I'm concerned about some of these tax bills that are on the floor, because we have to really address, we have to have tax reform, comprehensive tax reform. It's really essential. We want to lower the corporate rate. We want to close unnecessary special interest loopholes. We want increased revenue. There are many possibilities that can happen, just going to the table, what works, what is a good investment, what is a good tax credit, what just increases the deficit and puts money in the pocket of a special interest, making those judgments. But you can't take $600 billion out of the pot, and then there's more on the way. They'll probably try to get up to about $1 trillion in these kinds of bills that are special interest for the super wealthy and the special interest. And when they do that, when you go to the table, they've taken $1 trillion off the table. It's very hard to do. So I don't. These are not going to become law. We have veto proof. We can sustain a veto for the president on them should they go to his desk, which I hope they don't. But the fact is, they're not only they're a great differentiation for us because here they are doing what they're doing and not passing paycheck fairness and the rest, but giving tax breaks to the very super wealthy, 5,400 estates, the smallest percentage that you could possibly imagine in our country, but a lot of money, $260-some billion. So tax reform, hopefully not undermined by this silliness that they're going through right now for whatever purpose, except it helps us in our differentiation. I think there would be two big ones because building the infrastructure of our country is a very big deal. And they're related because if you do tax reform in some way to bring back the assets that are overseas, the money that is overseas, the repatriation, and you relate it to infrastructure, that is to say, investment in some infrastructure bank or something where that money is leveraged. It has to be leveraged because infrastructure is a big, tall order. Then I think we can work. These things are all related, and I think that again, the repatriation is very important to corporate America. We want it to come home. It can have a reduced rate if it produces jobs. When we did it before, it was supposed to produce jobs. It did not. They understand. I met with some of them yesterday. They understand that it has to relate to job creation, bigger paychecks for the middle class, and I think that it can all be done. So in terms of our, the three areas that we do things, in terms of policy, that would be transportation. In terms of appropriations, that would be what I talked about our passing the appropriations bills in terms of how we invest in the future, in terms of revenue, tax reform. There are three areas, and the three areas that we work in: policy, appropriating, and taxation. There may be other. I would hope that we could put immigration on that list at some point soon. Maybe when the Republicans see the light that they're not going to carry states and if they're losing by such big margins in the communities that are concerned about immigration. And that's most communities. That you don't have to be a minority to be concerned about immigration. That as the Senate had passed a bill that they could persuade, or the candidates for president could persuade the House Republicans that in order for them to win any of these states, they have to do better in the community that cares about immigration. But taxes, spending, policy. Yes, sir.
Speaking of candidates running for president, Lincoln Chafee, who's considering running for president as a Democrat.
Why did I not think that was going to be the first name out of your mouth?
Lincoln Chafee
Lincoln, of course,
said earlier this week that any Democrat who voted for the Iraq War should be disqualified from being your party's nominee. You called the Iraq War, among other things, a grotesque mistake. So he was obviously implying that Hillary Clinton should not be the nominee. Should she not? If you don't agree with Lincoln Chafee, why not?
Well, let me just, if we're litigating the Iraq War, let me say that in the House of Representatives, we saw things differently, and a majority of the House Democrats voted against the Iraq War. I was at the time self-serving. See that light go on? Self-serving. I was the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee at the time, And as such, I was required to receive all of the intelligence, the Gang of Four, the four House and Senate Democrat, and Republican, all of the information that the White House had on going into Iraq. And I said at the time, the intelligence does not support the threat. Now, I had better access than most people, and I couldn't really say everything that I saw. You all, maybe none of you, but the press at the time said, "Are you calling the president a liar?" And I said, "I'm stating a fact. The intelligence does not support the threat." My members had confidence in me, and they, on the strength of that, many of them voted against the war, and some of them were never going to vote for the war anyway. But they did thank me afterward. But I was was a few leaders, I wasn't a leader then, but I was one of the few persons to go into the leadership that had all these years of experience on intelligence and national security. And they trusted my judgment. I don't know what was going on in the Senate. I can't answer for that. But I can say that a message was given to the American people by the White House that was not true, misrepresented the concern that was out there, and created an atmosphere where, unless you really studied this carefully, and I'm not saying that everybody had access to that material, because they didn't. I was in a special place. But I don't think that a vote on a war 13 years ago, 14 years ago, the vote was, 02, so that many years ago, for entering right now, 03, March 19th, the Feast of St. Joseph. Got the call from the White House. President wants to inform you that in a couple hours we're going to initiate hostility into Iraq. And it's like, we haven't done our due diligence, we haven't done our inspections. This was wrong all around. Having said it, that was then, this is now, we go forward. And I do not think that the vote that Hillary Clinton took on that, nor did I think the vote that John Kerry took on it, disqualified him from being a candidate for president. And, again, Hillary Clinton has been a strong, she comes to this, yes, as a woman. It happens to be that she is a woman. She's so qualified, and she has had great national security experience as a member of the Armed Services Committee and as Secretary of State. And for these and so many other reasons, she will be one of the strongest, best prepared people to enter the Oval Office in a long time. There are some others, but she will be among the best prepared to serve as president. And I disagreed with that vote, but a war vote is a vote that everybody makes on the basis of what they know, what they believe, who they trust. And there are a large number of people in both parties who supported the war, unfortunately, because the consequences have been terrible in terms of what it meant to our veterans and the rest of that. But no. The answer is no, I don't think it should disqualify. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just follow up on the Hillary question? Can you talk more about what you think her candidacy means for congressional Democrats and for you potentially becoming Speaker again?
Yeah, no, that's not important. What's important is what it would mean to elect a woman president of the United States. It's a very major consideration. A very qualified woman to be president of the United States. Not just that she's a woman, but a very qualified. And when I became even whip, certainly leader and for sure speaker, the response that I got from all over the country was so overwhelming from people saying how encouraged they were that we had broken, not the glass ceiling, that's nothing. We're talking about marble ceiling. And that especially encouraging was some notes from dads, fathers of daughters, saying, I have so much confidence in my daughter now. I know she can do anything because you've reached that height. Now, most people don't even know that there is a speaker, that's not, shall we say, in the common awareness. So imagine if that was the response then, what it would mean to have a woman president, not only to the American people and women in our country and families, but to the world, to see that. Other countries have had women. But again, I'm not here to make any endorsements. I don't do politics in the Capitol. But you asked what it would mean, and I think it would mean a lot. I think it would mean a lot. Now, it's not everything. There are other, Lincoln Chafee has his, Martin O'Malley. I don't know what his plans will be. I guess Lincoln announced, is that what you're telling me?
No, he's considering.
Oh, he's considering, okay. And there may be others who are being encouraged to see what happens there. But elections are about the future. They're not about what happened 13 years ago. They're about the future, and that's really what people want to hear. What does this mean to my life in the future? And this is a special election because it's happening at a time where the world is changing in so many ways, economically, digitally. Every countries are going digital just like that. We're dealing in a different way of communicating, of conducting our economies and the rest, and how we do trade agreements and all the rest have an impact on that. And it is going to be an interesting conversation about how any one of these candidates can take us into the future. Thank you all very much, because I went beyond the last question.
But you would think that somebody who's been mayor of Baltimore would be qualified to be president, right?
Well, if he were governor of Maryland also, yes, I think. I do put a value on executive. I do put it, Drew won't let me doing this, but here's the thing, and I say this to my colleagues who want to run for governor, who want to run for mayor, depending on size of city and the rest, which direction they're going in, or president of the United States. When you're a Congress, or even if they want to be Speaker of the House or leader, because you're in an executive decision-making position. And so, as a legislator, and this is what I read when I was in college about John F. Kennedy and the rest before, when he was president, that legislators conduct themselves in a deductive way. You have hearings and hearings and hearings, and you're one vote, and you persuade somebody else to join you so that you can have a majority. And that is a deductive reasoning. Executives have to act in an intuitive way. They have to know on the spot. Something happens, they have to act. And they have to have enough knowledge. Well, first, and I would say this of many of the candidates, they have to have enough vision. What is my, what is my purpose? What is my knowledge of this issue? What judgment do I have so that I can have a plan to act intuitively? So you have to really trust your judgment and your advisors and the rest of that. So if you have been an executive, that's an experience that is valued. And I believe being Secretary of State is an executive position in that regard, as I think being leader or Speaker is, even though it's not an executive branch position. So, again, what people know affects their judgment, what they believe in guides them, and how quickly they can come up with a plan. And my advice is, if you act, 99% of the time that will be okay. Maybe sometimes it won't work, but because you act immediately, or I don't mean hastily, but quickly, you will prevent everybody who wants to destroy your options from weighing in. Because you hesitate and all of a sudden it gets parceled out and you have fewer options than if you just decide. John F. Kennedy, to govern is to choose. And that's why I think having some managerial experience is useful, and that's probably why we've elected a large number of governors to the White House. Our present president, not included, but he's a great president. Thank you all very much. Is that more than 7 things you wanted to know?
I know that you feel strongly that being the mayor of Baltimore is good preparation for
Any mayor of any city or the government now.
Wasilla?
Wasilla,
Wasilla,
Alaska.
Alaska?